Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Heart Podcast, brought to you by CornNation.com, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I'm your host, this guy right here, Greg Mahochko. Joining me in unusual order, at least on my screen, over here is Todd. Hi, Todd.
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
I'm peachy keen, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. And down here, our fearless leader, our founder, CornNation's beloved kick-ass of heart attacks, Mr. John Dam Johnston. Hello, sir.
Hi.
How are you?
Do you want a nice, honest answer, or what do you want from that question?
I feel like those might be two different answers. There's the nice answer or the honest answer.
Well, I have a whole shitload of staples in the back of my neck. It looks like they tried to cut my head off and then they stapled it back on. Obviously for U.S. government secrets. But I thought I was going in to get a cancerous cyst cut out of my neck. But what happened was they cut it open, and my underdeveloped twin that I never knew I had, named Bob, jumped out with a thing and started screaming at the doctor. And she slashed him up, and then she had to stitch up the entire wound. So it's miserable. You didn't expect it to start that way, did you?
That was not the beginning of the show I anticipated. It's not the one I had planned. I hope you were on a very short road to recovery and that you get feeling like your crotchety old self anytime now.
Well, I'm feeling more crotchety than ever.
Perfect. You know what makes you feel?
I grunt a lot. You know what the thing is I'm here for, to tell you guys what it's like to get old, I guess.
I thought that's why Todd was here.
Yeah, you're doing my job.
Well, I'm taking over this week. This last weekend, I went to see my former neighbor's son had a housewarming party, and my neighbor told me about how he needed to get his shoulders replaced. I want you to think about that for a minute, because that sounds fucking terrifying to me. I mean, the idea that, I know they do hips and knees, but they're going to replace your shoulders. I mean, he played college football. He played, Division I. I think he played Division I, maybe Division II, but he was a lineman, and he was particularly a nasty son of a bitch. And I guess he's got like no cartilage left in his shoulders. And this is what happens, you younger people. You need to start taking fish oil and glucosamine, and we're going to turn this into the supplement show.
And the first supplement we're going to be talking about is Blue Chew. No.
God, it really is the old people show, isn't it?
Let's peel back the curtain briefly here. Just before, it was before I even knew John was on the call. That's why we're out of orders, because we didn't know when John would be joining us. We're certainly glad that he's here for the duration. But I heard a sound from the kitchen, and knowing that all the rest of the family outside of the dog are all upstairs, I was like, sound like the dog just threw up. Like, it sounded like a splash. So I had to go investigate and obviously clean up if necessary. Come to find out, if the dog kicks a Hot Wheel car into a shoe, it sounds just like the dog throwing up. So no mess to clean up. Probably a Hot Wheels cars that need to be, consolidated. But I'll let future Greg deal with that. The
dog didn't eat the car or swallow the car.
No, but the dog has chewed some Lego pieces.
No.
So that's we've been working on it with our oldest back buddy. You got to pick up your Legos, like either snap them together or put them in the bin so that she's not chewing on them. So, but that's not why we're here. We are here to talk with you, the good folks, about Nebraska athletics and Blue Chew. No, I just like to say that because I know that you guys get a enjoyment.
We get excited.
They do. And that's how you know you need the Blue Chew, is when you get excited hearing about the Blue Chew. No, look, it's been, Todd and I were discussing, it's been a pretty quiet week from the football side of things, but there are some things going on in other Nebraska athletics, and John, the baseball team, I believe they were up your way last weekend, weren't they? Did I get that right, or am I wrong on the location?
Yes. Yep. No, they were in Minnesota.
Didn't go well.
No.
What happened?
They lost the worst team in the conference. You know what? What was it? The 8th inning of the second game, Todd, where they had a guy caught. He was off the bag, and the catcher overthrew a ball and allowed him to escape being a sure out, and things just shit. They just shit the entire series down from there.
Yep. They had the ball game won. Had it won.
It was like 8-5 in the 8th inning, was it?
I think that's about right. Yeah. I got so frustrated. I've been trying to erase it from my memory.
Minnesota's a bad baseball team.
They are. So I'm doing the Lord's work for the benefit of our listeners, and I'm on coronation.com. Aaron's write-up on that final game of the series starts with this unfortunate statistic, or maybe not statistic, but note. May 17 to 19, so 17, 18, 19 of 2019 was the last time Minnesota had won a Big Ten baseball series. That's almost 3 years ago. You know, we're just about to the middle of May until, this past weekend.
Minnesota, John Anderson he's been a coach at Minnesota for 41 years. And his teams the last, 2 years, Todd, have been at the bottom of the conference. They've been awful since this pandemic started. But I think that I don't know this. I don't follow Minnesota baseball close enough. But I think that also what happened in the last 2-3 years is one of his closest assistants retired. And I was told by some Minnesota people that guy had a huge impact on how the team was run. And anyway, him leaving, I think, has caused a lot of damage. And then, the pandemic, I think, has hurt some of the baseball teams that just haven't been able to develop players. And Minnesota is just bad. Their pitching's bad. Their hitting is maybe average, a little below average. They have a couple guys that can hit, the Kelly kid. But I just so fucking disappointing losing this series to them. The season, the season is just done.
They had to at a minimum win 2 of the 3. And, a sweep would have put them at 9 wins, I think, if my numbers are right. And, they were going to have double-digit wins, I think, to make the tournament. And it just didn't happen. And, John, you mentioned the assistant coach. I think that assistant coach was the one that was doing, the color commentary on the BTN broadcast. And, I'm not going to say that this is accurate, but when a person's been a coach at a program for 41 years, and when you get up into the age bracket that he's in, I think it gets more and more difficult to recruit because there's such a generational disconnect between the head coach and the players. Now, you can overcome that with the right kind of assistance on your staff. And really, it has nothing to do with John Anderson's ability to coach. The guy has forgotten more baseball than other coaches in the Big Ten Conference even know. And that's one of my arguments when I was a principal and athletic director, when parents had come up and say, well, the coach is too old. The coach is too old. The age of the coach, that has nothing to do with it. They, just because they turned whatever age doesn't mean that they all of a sudden got bad. But in the case of college athletics, I think it really plays a role in what kind of recruits you can bring on campus. And so I think that has as much to do with Minnesota's decline as anything.
I want to point out a couple of, surprising statistics. John Anderson has been the head coach at Minnesota longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still only 66.
Right.
So he's just a guy like that, I'm sure probably played there. Right. I mean, you guys both probably know better than me. But, played there and then immediately went, quote unquote, back home to fill a spot of probably the guy who coached him. But there is that's a difficult, I guess, bond to break, from the university side. If they've been this bad for that long and he's still hanging around there, and look, folks, I apologize. This is not the Minnesota, it's not a Minnesota podcast, but we have to deliver some context for you because that's how bad Minnesota's been. And they still keep the coach, which means they're never going to fire him. He'll have to look within and be like, it's just time to retire.
Yeah, it'll be time. He'll have to. It will be his decision, unless you've got an AD, unless revenue changes drastically, donors step away, that type of thing. But what's really frustrating, I guess, back to the weekend, is that Nebraska won, on Friday night, and we had every reason to believe up until the 8th inning on Saturday that they were going to walk out of there with 2 wins. And for it to end up, that game goes 12 innings, should have been over. And then, I'll tell you what, that game Sunday was just miserable. That was just a miserable ball game.
Yeah.
And, I hate to say it, but they've got 2 series left. Three games against Illinois, who's, up there towards the top of the conference, and then against Michigan State, who's kind of middle of the road. I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know. I hate predictions, but I don't see a positive end to the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, go back to Minnesota for a minute. 2018, Minnesota makes the NCAA tournament. They beat, they hosted and they played Gonzaga and UCLA because I shot that series. And they beat UCLA, I think, to move on and go to the Oregon State Super Regional. And they almost beat Oregon State, and Oregon State went on to win the College Series. So for them to go from we almost made the College World Series to we're a complete bucket of shit is just amazing as a trajectory, I think.
But that brings me to my next, my eventual next step of the conversation was Nebraska was picked to win the conference.
Yes.
They have not lived up to that expectation. Is it, I know, John, am I putting that mildly? Am I understating that a little bit? Is it just injuries? Is it the fact that, we've talked about this a couple times, and I'm not trying to push the blame, but is it the fact that, last year, spring of 2021, the conference said, well, there's not going to be any out of conference competition, and so a lot of guys didn't have, but every other school in the conference faced similar restrictions. So I don't know, maybe not quite to the Minnesota success of 2017 or 2018, John, which you were talking about a moment ago, to falling off the cliff. But Nebraska had a nice postseason run last year, and they had lofty expectations, and then they just fell flat. So from a guy who doesn't follow it all the time, certainly like you do, Todd, I'm curious, is it more than just like the fact that there's been injuries? And what can you pin it on?
Well, the first response that a lot of people are going to say is, the pitching staff was decimated. But in spite of that, guys, for the most part, the pitching has been good enough to win more than they have won.
Yeah.
And, if we were going to rank the reasons, absolutely poor hitting across the board. I guess I haven't looked at the stats after the Minnesota series, but if there's one, regular player in the lineup that's hitting over 300, That would be Garrett Anglim. And I don't know if he's still up there. But you don't win very many ball games in college baseball if you can't score some runs. And we've seen situations where that has happened. I mean, there have been moments. Didn't we have this same conversation with basketball? And didn't we have some of that same conversation in football where there have been times they've looked just incredible? But, the hitting is off, and you've got guys last year that hit very well that this year they're 60, 80, maybe even 100 points lower with their batting average than what they were last year. That to me is number one. The number of errors, Greg, and last year that defense was outstanding. And rarely, there were a lot of games you didn't see a single error, and they would put together streaks of games without an error. It was not unusual this year to have multi-error games. And
I want to talk a more macro level about errors, because that's right. Look, I was not an all-star, but I played high school baseball. Like to feel, I was the guy who understood the game in like the mechanics of it better than I could actually get out there and perform. But I always felt that errors were mental mistakes. Like if a line drive's hit right at the second baseman and he reacts as quickly as he can and he knocks the ball down, that's not an error. But if he's being lackadaisical or not paying attention and he throws the ball over the first baseman's head, that's an error. My dad used to say for years growing up, watching Cardinal baseball, and as the times changed and as the, I guess, probably athleticism of the outfielders changed, this is for the benefit of you watching on YouTube. It was always, I'm right-handed, so glove on the left hand and right hand up there to, help collapse it. And then that started to go away, and you just had the one hand catches. And my dad would always say, 2 hands, easy money, that type of thing. But getting back to the original question before all of my, personal history, I feel errors, aren't they more of just a mental situation that can, by doing little things can be rectified?
Well, the scorekeepers keep track of the physical errors. And sometimes those physical errors happen because of a mental error. But, there's no column for the mental errors that are made. And, right. I just think that, how do I want to say this? I think a lot of the physical errors that have taken place this year have been because of a lack of focus. Yeah. Has been because of maybe trying to do too much. And, that compounds the problems.
I have a question. We talk about Scott Frost coming into the Big Ten and they, facing this Big Ten based football thing, right? Where teams are tough and physical and they have big linemen and they run the ball. Brr. And then we talk about, when Fred Hoiberg came into the Big Ten, well, is he going to be able to play in the Big Ten, the toughest conference in the nation, and Big Ten style of basketball where they have big guys and they're tough and big and strong? One thing we never talk about, I never hear anybody talk about, and I don't know enough about baseball strategy to discuss it, is does Will Bolt have to figure out how to be successful in the Big Ten? Is that a thing? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, John, I think that's a good question. And it's a pretty good observation because, one of the things about, so when Will Bolt played at Nebraska, Will Bolt was this little 5'6", 5'7" second baseman, and scrapped like hell.
I was just say gritty, right? He had that kind of like hard-nosed mentality.
When you look at, and, I have great seats at Nebraska games, and I'm about as close to players on the field as one can get. And it just amazes me how big across the board the players are from other teams that come in and play at Nebraska. New Mexico State this year, those guys were, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". Iowa, with the exception of their shortstop, big old tall guys. I guess maybe their second baseman was kind of squatty. Rutgers, Michigan. My God, Michigan looked like a basketball team. They got all these big old rangy guys that play. Now, that being said, the Nebraska team, I think kind of takes on a little bit of the character of their coach. And he is looking for those gritty, scrappy kinds of players. Now, that being said, those little bit smaller guys, hell, they can hit the ball out of the ballpark just as much as anybody else. So I don't think the physical aspect is any different. But I think, and for Will Bolt, adjusting to the Big Ten style of play, Will Bolt was an assistant in the Southeast Conference, and they dominate baseball in the Southeast Conference. So where Will Bolt, I think, has come up short a little bit is he's got to do a little bit better job recruiting top-end pitchers. But more importantly, there's going to have to be some changes, with hitting. And I don't want to dive into that. We could get there. We could go down rabbit holes. Like
pitch count, is that it?
Pardon?
Pitch counts.
Well, here's something and I would say I'm not as good with pitching as I am the other aspects of the game. But here's one of those rules of baseball. You can't pitch from behind. And throughout, most of the season, Nebraska starting pitchers were pitching from behind. With a couple of exceptions were, the day that Shea Shannon pitched down in Texas, and Shea Shannon had a couple of starts where he did get ahead of pitchers. But that Friday night game against Iowa a couple weeks ago, that Iowa pitcher was always ahead in the count, And, that's a good spot to be when you're a pitcher. Nebraska's pitching needs to adjust in that way.
Back to the conference. Right now, Rutgers leads this conference at 16-5. Maryland is second at 13-5. Iowa and Illinois is tied for third. Rutgers
all of
and
those
Maryland,
teams were predicted to be up there along with Nebraska.
Rutgers and Maryland are ACC teams.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they came out of the ACC in baseball, and the ACC faced Florida State, perennial college World Series team. Every year, Rutgers would go down to Miami for their opening series of the season and get the shit kicked out of them when they joined the Big Ten. Steve Owens came as their coach, and now they're winning the conference. I just pointing that out. I don't know if I had much more to say than two ACC teams that are leading our conference. And Dougie, I had a second thing I was going to go with. Pitchers. We had news this week. Tyler Martin's gone.
Tyler Martin's gone as of today, it sounds like.
God, what's just
violating team rules.
Yeah, it's just, that's what, 5 or 6?
I think it's 6. 6 pitchers who started the season.
Yeah. And there wasn't a shitty one.
So be it injuries or other attrition, that pitching staff's been depleted this year. I don't know. I appreciate the baseball talk from you guys, especially Todd, because you're so knowledgeable, passionate, and you show up to games. So that's great. But no, I don't. That sounded worse than I intended to. But I don't have much more to add for baseball except it was mentioned, Illinois and then Michigan State. Let's go Big Red, I guess. I don't know. Let's figure it out and try to sneak in the back door.
Hey, the two teams at the bottom of the conference, Ohio State and Minnesota. And, we talked about John Anderson, but Greg Beals at Ohio State. What the hell? That's another guy that is just the bottom's falling out for him because they're not very good either. No. And that's just, he won't last long. They won't put up with that.
They won't put up with that at all.
Minnesota will let John Anderson linger around forever because they're just kind of like, we win sometimes. But Ohio State will not. I'd be surprised if he survives this year, honestly.
Nebraska's roster is going to, over 50% of that roster is going to turn over next year. He's got at least 20 new players coming on board next year. And, it will be real interesting to see who's gone and what some of these new faces are going to add to the team. And I think my numbers are probably off, but 8, 9, 10, 11 JUCO transfers. And you don't bring those guys in for depth.
You bring them in to make, similar to the transfer portal in football or basketball, to make an immediate impact. So we're going to take a timeout. And when we come back, we're going to talk about another spring sport that's actually good. We're going to have some softball talk coming up after the turn. So stick around. The 5 Heart Podcast is up next. Unless you're watching this on YouTube, I can't really control where they put their ads. So you might just be getting us right away. Welcome back to the 5 Heart Podcast. The audio version has the commercial right where we wanted it to be. The video version, crapshoot. We apologize. Greg Mahochko here, of course, John Johnston, Todd Wolverton. And we just got done talking a little bit about baseball, which is unfortunate that we give so much time to a bad team, but we do it every football season. So, this is what we do here. We like to wallow in our misery. Let's talk about a good team. That Nebraska Husker softball team, they did, I don't know if I want to use the word falter. They had a little rough patch there a few weeks back, but now they are in the Big Ten tournament. They beat Penn State on Thursday, 3-1. Did you guys have an opportunity to watch the game, or did you just catch up Andy's recap on CornNation.com?
I got to watch part of the game, the last 3 or 4 innings. So, and you know what? It's great that Andy's there. His coverage on Corn Nation's been good, and I think he's I guess just kind of reading between the lines. I think he's been excited by the atmosphere and all that's going on at that tournament. So, Nebraska did get a nice win. Well, they were the 2nd seed, and they held serve, so to speak, against Penn State, beat them 3-1. And then on Friday, they'll play against Ohio State, who pulled, the first upset of the tournament, where they, I think Ohio State was seeded 6th, and they knocked off the number 3 seed Illinois.
They did, and did so 5-1.
Yeah. But, the other thing, when you get conference tournament time is when they also, have a lot of the honors and that type of thing. And, Nebraska had 8 of their players get all Big Ten conference recognition, which tied Northwestern. So those are the top 2 teams in the conference. But, they had the freshman of the year, catcher Ava Bredwell, and to have a freshman catcher, that's one thing. A freshman that's behind the plate, that's a big deal in softball, and for her to be the freshman of the year, that's a real accomplishment. They had 2 first-team players as well, Abby Squire and Cammie Barris. So those 2 gals have been leading the team offensively, along with Billy Andrews, who was second team all conference. But good showing with the all conference recognition for the Huskers.
I want to show some love and appreciation for Andy. As you mentioned, he made the road trip, so he's in East Lansing, Michigan, which, by the way, if you're going to go to East Lansing, Michigan, go in May like for a softball trip or something like that, or maybe April for baseball or softball, something like. Don't go in November, December, October. I know I'm getting them out of order, but I had to remember October, January, February. Stay out of Michigan really as often as you can. Michigan's a crap hole. But if you have to go in a warmer month. So, but I want to shout out Andy because his write-up is tremendously entertaining. He's talking about the bottom of the fifth inning. I'm going to read this verbatim so I don't misquote it. And so, you can go and read the rest of it. He says, but then Kayla Kinney started the bottom of the fifth by taking first after two of her arm hairs appeared to be clipped by an inside fastball. So just good stuff. Hey, you take those bases when you can, right? But
I'm glad he's doing more.
Yeah, it's great to see him
years
back.
ago, he asked me, what do you want me to do? And I said, Andy, you're an asshole. So be an asshole and you just own it, right? Like an asshole, because you're an asshole. And he's like, okay. And, a lot of the times he just writes, he's very, well, he's an asshole. I'm glad he's writing more. I think he can be very entertaining.
I concur. Best of luck to the women. Again, they're taking on Ohio State. As you're listening to this or watching this, if you're watching it early enough, they're taking on Ohio State today, Friday, 2:00. And, good luck to them and get them a couple more dubs and maybe bring some hardware back to Lincoln because, that's in recent memory. It's been the women who've been carrying the winning load, so to speak. So wanted to give them some recognition. Also wanted to talk about, and this is going to go back to our winter sports. Let's talk about some former Huskers that we like to keep tabs on. We'll go with the more recent first. Bryce McGowens, John and Todd, I don't know if you know, I'm sure you do. He is going to participate in the 2022 NBA Combine. So Nebraska had him for a hiccup, a cup of coffee, as they like to say. And we certainly wish him well. You gotta look, it would have been great to have him for another season. But yeah, let's be realistic. You got an opportunity to go and make bank while the body's healthy. As a younger guy, I used to, be more selfish about it. Be like, no, you can't, you've got to stay. But there's only so much tread on the tires. And if you're a hot NBA prospect, like Bryce is, a projected first rounder, or if you're a running back who as a guy who never played football, still has shoddy knees, go get that paycheck while you can, guys. I'm done being selfish and dramatic.
Well, I'll tell you what, the whole one and done thing, that phenomenon in basketball has been going on for, quite a while now. John Calipari seemed to be able to capitalize on it at Kentucky, and Coach K tried to at Duke as well.
But Nebraska never had the caliber of athlete who would ever qualify for a one and done.
Right.
So we're in uncharted territories.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Here's crotchety old man.
Shit. Two of them.
Who I am an NIL fan, and I am a transfer portal fan but they both need to be changed. So I'll preface that out front. But the whole one and done thing, there's a solution to that in basketball. And that's that D League or G League or whatever the hell they call it. Those teams are subsidized by the NBA. If kids want to play 1 year of basketball and then get into the draft and hopefully get drafted and go to the NBA, then the hell with college. Skip college, go play in that G League or that D League or wherever the hell it is. They're paying them salaries there. We don't need them in college basketball. College basketball is exciting enough. So, get rid of the whole damn one and done thing and keep those kids on campus for 2 or 3 years.
Kind of like baseball?
Kind of like baseball.
I'm going to say this is where I maybe I don't necessarily disagree, with the concept. However, I don't think look, you can be a hot prospect out of high school and go into the G or D or whatever, LMNOP league that you want to be in. And yeah, you'll be subsidized a little bit, but there's no guarantee that that's going to translate to, I still think that and maybe I'm speaking out ignorance here, which wouldn't be the first time. But I feel like more eyeballs, higher profile, if you're at an Illinois or a Duke or a Kentucky or North Carolina or a Kansas or, wherever, that you can elevate your draft stock. You might be able to jump from a fourth round. I don't know how the NBA draft works. I don't think anybody does it. It's bullshit. But you can
2 rounds.
Okay. So you can that seems awfully unfair because there are a lot of college basketball players. And I feel like more of the, let's usher out the old guys. If you've been in the league more than 10 years, it's time to go. You're probably not playing at an elite level anymore. So
wow.
I just said that for the reaction, John.
Greg.
I just said that for the reaction.
Maybe you just like to euthanize everybody over 60 too.
No, my parents are over 60. I would never consider such a.
Well, somebody else would do it for you.
Nobody's going to take out my parents. John, I'll beat you. All right. So anyway, Bryce
John, we're doomed. We're doomed.
Bryce McGowens, congratulations. Good luck at the Combine. The other former Husker I wanted to mention is Jordan Burroughs, the gold medalist and now 5-time Pan Am champion. Todd, this is more your wheelhouse. I'm not sure how familiar you are with everything, but it's another accolade for really the brightest shining star that come out of the Nebraska wrestling group.
Yep, no doubt. And I think what's most impressive is his longevity and the fact that he has bounced up a weight class.
Yeah.
And, 5 Pan Am championships, gold medals, that's great. I will say this, in the big scheme of international wrestling in the international community, the Pan Ams are not the toughest. The country south of the United States, wrestling isn't nearly as significant of a sport as it is in other parts of the world. But that being said, it is international level competition. There are guys in some of those countries occasionally that will medal at world competitions and that type of thing. So I don't want to take that much away from him, but
you did. You just peed in his Cheerios.
The fact of the matter is he's won 5 of the dang things. He continues to be the top wrestler in our country at his weight class. That's just phenomenal. And I don't see him slowing down. I honestly thought when Kyle Dake knocked him out of the Olympics that Jordan probably was going to call it a career. And I think he's been rejuvenated, and I don't see him. I'll bet the guy's got another 2 or 3 years in him.
That's the great thing about wrestling is there's no age cap in that shoddy basketball. You get in there, if you can hang, we want to see you on the mat.
I feel like he was just talking about me there.
Who?
Todd.
Oh.
We might have another 2-3 years in him.
No. See, here's the thing, John. We know that you perform at an elite level every time.
Oh, God, really?
And thanks to Blue Chew, your wife knows it too. Anyway, moving on. John, you did a video earlier this week on the official Corn Nation YouTube page titled, "Can the NCAA do anything about NIL?" I think we all know the answer to that question. But we did get some feedback on that. I wanted to share some of those questions. Charles asked, when they start regulating head coaches' salaries, then I would consider regulating NIL money. Do you think that'll ever happen? Fair question. Do you think that they're ever going to put a salary cap on coaching salaries? I mean, I feel like the answer is no. But
no, I don't think you can. That'd be antitrust too, wouldn't it? Anytime you try to limit somebody's salary, that's an antitrust thing. And if there's one thing that America has done well, it's
overpay
lawyers.
People. Oh,
no. This is a capitalist country as far as I'm concerned, and there is no idea of overpaying somebody. You earn what you negotiate, or you earn with just what they pay you, and blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, no, that's antitrust. Years ago, Greg, in the, I think it was the 1980s, there was a fear
I won't know
America
about it then. I was very little.
There was a fear in America that nobody talks about today, and that was the fear that there were a lot of Elvis impersonators. And somebody put out this thing in the papers, and they said, and it was like a meme before memes were memes, before the internet. And they said, at one point there was only one Elvis. And then there was they started calculating the number of Elvis impersonators around the nation. And they said by the year 2000, 85% of this nation will be Elvis impersonators. And that didn't happen for, whatever reason. But I think if we would look at how life is in America right now, this is true for lawyers.
Is it because Elvis was lame?
Elvis was lame. My God, there went part of our listenership. You fucking blasphemer. I mean, I'm not the biggest Elvis guy, but I know that you don't say shitty things about Elvis and live.
Actually, no. There is an Elvis biopic coming out. Are you familiar?
No.
There is. It actually. I was again saying things to be entertaining, John. But Baz Luhrmann is directing. I think it's just called Elvis. And it's from early. It's early life to his Las Vegas years. Same actor is playing. They're doing special effects and makeup and things like that to age him up and fatten him up appropriately. Looks really good. I encourage you, John, if you're even a mild Elvis fan. I don't know how. I mean, you are on the internet, right? I mean, you know about this thing called the internet, John. You can
sometimes.
It was all over the internet when the trailer came out. I can't believe you missed it.
I have actually set most of my search stuff to just not Elvis.
Okay. Well, now we can. I feel like
going back. You're going back to the original question. The NFL. Does the NFL have salary caps for coaches? I mean, do they have a cap for coaches? I don't think they do. They have. I
don't think any entity has a coach or has a cap for coaches.
No.
And there's no cap for CEOs because we throw money at those sons of bitches all the time.
No, there's no cap for CEOs.
Right. So this
by
is
far the
America,
most underpaid.
the last time I checked, you fucking commie bastards. Yeah.
Okay. So
do you have another question?
I do.
Because I suddenly have got energy now.
This is what I do. I wait till the very last bit of the show to wake you up. Linda asks, the other question is, who's going to manage the locker room? Some guy is going to be making $500,000, and some guy is going to be making $1.25. Are you thinking there are not going to be some issues there? Oh, they're talking about the players. Some guys are,
This is going to be.
We've talked a little bit about that, like the alleged like O'Shawn Mathis type of numbers versus some of the more local guys who have little deals with Runza or whatever. And I'm sure Runza's compensating fairly, but there are some other the guys who maybe just have a online store with a trademark apparel type of thing. Maybe not driving a ton of revenue, but do you think that there's going to be fallout from that? Or if the team's winning, do you think there's as much care?
I think that look at how college football's coaches are now. I mean, one of the greatest videos you'll see by any coach ever, and you can go look it up on YouTube, is a post game by Jerry Burns when he was the Viking coach. And he says fuck about 83 times. And it is an absolutely, if a coach did that now, we would all shit ourselves. We would just go, oh my God, this is the family oriented NFL that still employs sexual assaulters and, rapists and shit, but not that. Don't say the F word, coach. But here's the point. We take our coaches and they're supposed to be a football strategist. They're supposed to manage in Scott Frost's case, 150 person roster. They're supposed to do recruiting every single minute of their lives. They're supposed to be good and stand up in front of the press. Think about Bob Diaco. Okay, Bob Diaco was a disaster, but Bob Diaco was 10 times the disaster he was because he should have never been in front of a mic. If Bob Diaco could just go be a defensive coordinator, he probably wouldn't have been the horrible disaster that he was. But when you stuck that guy in front of a mic, he couldn't talk worth shit. So we're asking our college football coaches to do all this stuff, and now they're going to have them manage locker rooms where the right guard's making $600,000 this year and the center is making $2.50. That is going to
no right guard is going to make $650,000.
Wait. Let's talk
example, Todd.
Let's talk about
the angry lineman hating fucker.
Let's talk about the opportunity there. A right guard being sponsored by Right Guard.
Yeah, Todd. But yeah, I mean,
realistically, right guard should have deals with every right guard across the country.
You're taking. I mean, Tom Osborne was an exceptional coach because he knew how to manipulate people. I mean, he knew how to coach him, but he also knew how to manipulate him. And when you say manipulate, people go, "Oh, well, that's bad." No, not really. Not all the time. Sometimes it's mentoring taken to another level. But he knew how to put guys into positions to be successful, to get the most out of them. He knew how to work with their heads to get them to do stuff. And so did both of his coaches, Charlie McBride and Milt Tenopir. All right? Those guys were masters at it. And I'll be honest with you, it gets better as you get older, knowing how to do that to a certain point, deal with people and deal with the relationships and stuff like that. But you're going to ask college football coaches to take on all those rules. The number of people that can do those rules and do them all successfully is probably it's less than the good quarterbacks in the NFL. And how many good quarterbacks are there in the NFL?
2.
12? 10?
Maybe 3.
There's no.
There's not one in Green Bay. That's for sure.
Those are excellent quarterbacks. I'm talking about good.
There's none. There's none in Wisconsin. That's for damn sure.
But those differences in the locker rooms. Now it's cash. Now it's money. Now it's attention. There's been inequity in those locker rooms forever. I mean,
I don't disagree.
The quarterback, the running back, the wide receiver, they're getting the good looking girls. The linebackers, the defensive back, they're getting, the second tier. And then, the linemen, they're settling for whoever is left. And
no. The person picking up the scraps is the backup long snapper.
Well, yeah, I haven't mentioned kickers and punters yet. I mean, there's always been that kind of inequity that coaches have had to deal with.
This is way beyond that.
But I feel like
you know what I mean.
When there are commas and zeros involved, I feel like it's a different animal. So,
didn't you hate those frat guys that had the nice cars? If motherfuckers driving around with brand new Trans Ams and you're like pedaling on your bicycle and you're like, I'm gonna follow this guy, and when he gets out and goes into a building, I'm keying his fucking Trans Am motherfucking Z28 driving shithead, huh? Okay, nobody else felt that way but me. Fuck you.
That
liars.
Feels strangely specific, John. Is there,
whatever.
Is there anything you're not allowed to say because we're not outside the statute of limitations just yet?
Well, we're out of those.
That's right. You are old.
But you know what I mean? There's that envy, jealousy thing. That's one of the 7 deadly sins. It's inherent to every human being. Controlling that or, dealing with that is.
No, I
had one of my linemen in high school.
But I do think it's going to be a challenge.
I had one of my linemen in high school next to me tell me that every time he thought one of the running backs was getting too uppity, he missed a block. I was aghast at this, but that's it.
Ole.
Yeah. And, okay, then we're going to lose our other games by one score again. There you go. Miss block, motherfuckers, just because some other guy got $600,000 and you got pizza.
All right. One more thing about your video, John. And look, we appreciate all the comments, and there are a fair amount of comments on this. The last one from Dennis, doing a little bit of fact checking on you there, John. He says Marie Antoinette didn't really say let them eat cake. It was repeated on the streets. He says it's fake news from 1789. Now, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, courtesy of Britannica.com, there's no evidence that Marie Antoinette ever said let them eat cake. We do know people have been attributing the phrase something similar in French, I can't read, to her for nearly 200 years and debunking it for just as long. The first time the quote was connected to Antoinette in print was in 1843.
Okay, my response to this is everybody knows that there's only been fake news for the past, let's say, 8 years. And all the news before that was always verified and objective and non-biased. And there was never everything ever reported in human history before like 8 years ago was factually corrected. They didn't, opinionate on the news and bias up the news. And there you go.
I had textbooks in the 80s in grade school that made acid rain seem like something that was going to be way more significant than it's not something we ever hear about anymore.
That's because we have all sorts of stuff. Can I get political for one? It's not really that political.
No.
Okay. I'll talk to you guys. Ask me after the show.
Marie Antoinette may not have said that, but she sure was thinking it.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's not really Todd. Fake then, is it, Greg? Or Diane or Hora? Who said that? Debbie?
No, Dennis.
Okay.
And there's no way for you to know what was going through her head before the guillotine, Todd. So knock it off.
I've seen documentaries on the French Revolution. It was definitely going through her head.
I think what was going through her head is I'm going to stain my knickers.
You're going to shave your knickers? What?
Stain my knickers.
Oh.
She was guillotined.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn ghastly.
Well, you probably would be quick. I mean, other than the whole dragging you up there in front of a crowd screaming for your death.
You just got to, it's one of those things, even with the weight, you just want the blade to be sharp, right? I mean, you don't want to. All right, this is taking a weird turn.
You see where you went? You went there. I didn't go there this time. I was just like, making up stuff about the news. I do appreciate the people on YouTube making a lot of comments. We are getting a lot of comments on videos, so
we appreciate them. We had some very nice comments. Folks from our last episode, they appreciated our brief and sobering conversation about mental health. So they appreciate that, and they agree that it's something that needs to be talked about more. So we're not going to end the show with that. We're going to end the show with a joke. Todd.
Oh.
No. Hey,
you got nothing?
Can I say this is important? It's not a joke, but about the time that Nebraska and Ohio State are opening or starting their game tomorrow, I get to meet Todd.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I get the pleasure and the privilege of meeting Todd and his lovely wife, and we're going to go have some barbecue.
Yeah, we're going to have a good time.
John, you're invited.
Just make sure you know where her hands are at all the time. Just saying. Not going to explain that. Just make sure you know where her hands are all the time. And we ended on a joke. Woo! Yeah, motherfuckers.
I'm trying to figure out how concerned I need to be.
Just don't sit next to her.
Can I tell you a story about a friend of ours in college?
Yeah, because that's a good way to end the show. Yeah, and it's relative because you went to Nebraska.
Okay, so Tom was this guy that was a wrestler. It was one of my roommates. And Tom and I would go to parties. And Tom was boisterous like I was, and he was loud like I was, and gregarious, and we had a good time. And Tom or I would tell this joke to people. And the joke was this, and we'd make sure there was a bunch of people around us. And the joke goes like this. There's these two snails going across the desert. One of them looks at the other one and says, "Do you know what time it is?" And the other one says, "What do I look like? An alarm clock?" And we'd start laughing. And there's no joke here. There's no joke at all. But we would start laughing. If Tom told the joke, I'd start laughing. And the people around us would all look very confused, but they'd see me laughing. And then they'd start laughing. And then, of course, because they're laughing, I'm thinking, you fucking people thought this was a joke. You don't even know how to respond or react. They start laughing. Tom starts laughing. The whole fucking place would be blowing up. Just, And we did this just to screw with people all the time. So it was just something stupid that we did for fun. And it always worked. It always worked because people are just, you can never predict what an individual is going to do, but you can almost always predict what a crowd is going to do. I'll just let that go right there.
Well, that reminds me of a line from the first Men in Black movie, where Tommy Lee Jones as Agent K is sitting with Will Smith, who would become Agent J, and he's telling him that aliens exist. And Will Smith's character is like, well, why don't you just tell people, people are smart. And Tommy Lee Jones says the person is smart, but people are irrational and fearful and everything else. So it feels like when we get into a crowd, our overall IQ lowers.
Oh,
and then,
no doubt.
And then we're just screaming off with their head. And there you go.
Marie Antoinette, guillotine, eating cake.
Full circle. Full circle.
Tied it all back together.
That is it for this episode of the Five Heart Podcast. We had some fun. Hope you did too. I've got great news. I was telling Todd before the show, and John, I'll fill you in. And we want to say early congratulations to all of the graduates, because graduation is today, Friday. So among those graduates is our very own Haas Reuter. And that means that Haas is going to be coming back. I don't know if he's going to be staying, but he's definitely coming back. And from what I've gathered, our buddy Haas,
a tease,
our mild-mannered prince of hearts, he's coming back with a little piss and vinegar. So that's all I'm going to say right now. That's all I'm going to say right now. But I don't know if we're going to get the one of our commenters asked months ago if we're going to do a lineman review or preview ahead of the season. I don't know. We're going to get something from Haas. I don't know what it's going to be, what it's going to sound like, but I think it's going to be entertaining. But in all sincerity, congrats to Haas. Congrats to all the graduates for all of your hard work and effort and making it this far. Now go out and get jobs, you lazy bums. You got student debt to pay for.
My rotten son graduated today from the University of Minnesota.
Oh, congrats to him.
Yeah, congrats to him. I mean, he could have gone to better schools.
I have a nice photo with me and Goldie Gopher.
Oh, you should save that for the next $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy game.
Okay.
That's it for the show, boys and girls. For our founder and fearless leader, John Dam Johnston, for Todd Wolverton, I'm Greg Mahochko, reminding you this week and every week that 5 Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red.
Todd?
Go Big Red.